Alright guys, thought I'd put together a little comparison video here for the two four-wheelers. So this is the 18 Can-Am Outlander 570 and this is the 17 Polaris Sportsman 570. Alright, I thought I'd start with a little walk around review of these machines. So here's your steerable headlight pod up here with the two more lights down here, the low beams here. Your McPherson strut. Here's the battery down there. This is your rear brake, foot brake. Not in the best location, but it works. Shifter here, high, low, neutral, reverse park. Access to your dipstick right in here. You pull this little thing off. It's right into there. Here's your gauge. These are for your lights. You got your high, low, off, obviously. Your kill switch, and then this button serves two purposes. It scrolls through your options on the screen, but also if you're going in reverse, you can hold it down and it overrides the limit for speed. And then this is your four-wheel drive switch and your throttle. This brings up one complaint over here that I have. I don't know if anybody else has this, but this thing wiggles around actually as well as this, and I'm not going to move it because I have it where I like it. I don't know if it's supposed to do that, but I don't like it. And then here is fuel cap. Now if you lift up these little rubber latches over here, you get a whole bunch of storage right up front, which is very nice. Not in the most logical shape. Polaris got it in there, and I think that's pretty smart. Here's your wheel and tire package right there. Show you, get under here a little bit. We have a silencer on here for some noise rules. Got a little bit more storage back here, as you can see, maybe. Two taillights. It's nice if you're backing up at night. You got your belt, your CVT. You can see it right there. So yeah, that's this machine. All right, now for the Can-Am. So we got our lights up here. We'll take a look at the suspension here in a minute. We got the radiator there. Wheel and tire package. I don't think the wheels look half bad for being stamped steel wheels on this one, but that's my opinion anyway. Floorboards on this thing are better than the Polaris's. You got actual metal right up here. It's a lot more grippy. Here's your rear foot brake and your dipstick right there. Gas cap. Very nice location for putting gas in the thing. Speaking of gas, this thing seems to suck more of it. Here's the gauge. This is your light controls, high and low beams and off. Your start button, your kill switch, and then your reverse override button. And then this is the four-wheel drive switch along with the throttle right here. Here's you got your gated shifter, high, low, neutral, reverse park. Again, has that park feature, which is nice. And then your keys over on the left side here. Moving right along, here's the back side. Again, this one has a silencer on it. And it's got some storage back here. You can only access it if you've got nothing on this rack, but we usually don't have anything on the rack anyway. It's a nice big storage bin. It's got a little metal bumper, which is nice. Sticks out far enough. So you got your belt in here again. And yeah, there's the Outlander. So for ground clearance on these two machines, the Can-Am here has 10.5 inches, Polaris has 11 inches. As far as these things, the comfort on these things, they're both very comfortable compared to our old four-wheelers here. The Can-Am has a little narrow midsection, so your legs don't have to be as far spread apart. On the Can-Am, you sit more on top of the machine here, and it has also a very comfortable seat. Polaris does as well, and you sit more in the seat, which I prefer. So the gauge on the Can-Am is very straightforward, nicely laid out and easy to use. So you have all your info here, your odometer, miles per hour, time, etc. We'll run through those in a minute. The Polaris, equally as well laid out. Turn this key on here. So the speedometer, obviously right on top, and then you can use this little reverse button over here to scroll through your stuff. So you got your miles, RPMs, etc. running through here. So a lot of information. I like the Polaris better, not because of the way it looks, but because you have more information available to you at once. So as far as all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive in these machines, Polaris has the on-demand all-wheel drive. You just use this little lever over here, just go right between them, changes on the fly. It's very nice. Can-Am uses the Visco lock system, which is used through this little rocker lever. Both were great. Never gotten stuck on either four-wheeler. I'm very happy so far. Alright, here you can see the all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive and suspension of each vehicle working. You'll notice that the brakes are a little squeaky on the Polaris, and that's because I use them a lot. The Polaris doesn't have engine braking, whereas the Can-Am does, and we have a lot of hills where we live, so that brake gets used a lot. If you're looking at either of these two machines, price is probably one of your main considerations. The Polaris here for the 2017 model is $6,700. Can-Am is $6,800. As far as the brakes on these things, they each have one brake lever in the front, which brakes all four wheels, and then they each have a foot brake lever, which just does the rear wheels. So right here, I drive each machine at about the same speed and start braking at about the same spot to see which one has better braking power, which one stops sooner. The Polaris did not stop as soon as the Can-Am, but that could be due to the fact that I used the brake more on the Polaris. In the Polaris's defense, I did apply the brake a little bit later than on the Can-Am, as I could see while rewatching the video. For the racks on these things, Polaris has composite racks, reinforced with steel underneath, but they don't have as much capacity as the Can-Ams. Obviously, they're steel, so these have 270 pounds capacity, whereas the Can-Ams have 360 front and rear combined. The Polarises are slipperier, so if you're loading, wood or whatever on there that you need to bring, it'll slip easier than on the Can-Am. Also, this allows for more tie-down points, which is nice, but for my use, we're just pretty much riding them, not really working with them. Both of these machines tow great. The Polaris tows 1,225 pounds. Can-Am tows 1,300. The Can-Am is easier to tow down hills and stuff like we have here because of the engine braking. The Polaris does not have that. The Polaris, though, does seem to have a little bit more low and grunt to get her done. And then the lights. So, Polaris has 3 lights, obviously. The headlight pod is steerable, which is nice. They're all 50 watt. The Can-Am's here, it just has 2, and they are 35 watt lights. So as far as durability and reliability, they've both been great. The Polaris's belt slipped, I think, once in the mud, but I was going too fast through the mud. Also, the U.S. military uses Polaris off-road vehicles, so I think that should give anybody confidence in buying one. Alright, let's talk about fit and finish here for a sec. So, Can-Am feels very solid, but the way they put it together, there's a lot of these giant cracks, which I don't particularly love. There's a little crack between the seat here too. But that's the way it came. It hasn't been falling apart by any means. It's just staying the same. It's just, that's the way it's made. So yeah, it's been a very solid machine. Now, as far as the Polaris goes, its fit and finish isn't quite up to par as maybe what the Can-Am says, but it's good. There's probably my biggest complaint is this crack between the seat. It just keeps on getting bigger. Some of these little things, little details as well, that don't really matter. The way plastic fits together is really not the main point of the machine. It's just nice when it does fit together well. And for the most part on this machine, it fits together very well. The way it's put together, straight from the factory, I like. There's not giant cracks. Fits very nice. Just some of those cracks are getting a little bigger in some spots, which is not a big deal. Here's another example on the Polaris of where I just like how the plastic fits real nice. This is one of the things where if it moves just a little bit, it starts to look like a bigger crack. Whereas the Can-Am's over here, if this moves a little bit, you don't really know. If it moves too much, it starts looking like a hole, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Power on the Sportsman comes from a 567cc dual overhead cam, 4-stroke single-cylinder engine which is fuel injected and produces 44 horsepower. It especially shines in low end power. Power on the Can-Am comes from a 570cc single overhead cam, 4-stroke V-twin, which is fuel injected and has 48 horsepower. This engine doesn't have the most impressive low-end power, but definitely shines right in the middle. As I said earlier, the low-end power on the Polaris is very impressive. This also contributes to the handling. When you're going around a corner, it's nice to just squeeze the throttle and watch the rear wheels just kind of spin out behind you. The handling in general on this machine is a little bit heavier than the Can-Am's, especially on cement. But at normal speeds, it's not too jerky, and when you're going faster, it's very light. The Sportsman is also very stable due to a sway bar in the rear. The Can-Am steering is generally a little bit lighter than the Polaris and a little bit more precise. It's more of a point-and-shoot steering type of idea. The suspension on the Can-Am is very soft. Small obstacles disappear, but bigger ones don't necessarily disappear as much as they do on the Polaris. There's also more body roll on this four-wheeler. The front suspension on the Can-Am is a double A-arm with 9 inches of travel, and the rear suspension is the torsional trailing arm independent suspension with 8.8 inches of travel. Because of the way the shocks travel in the rear, we find that we get a lot of mud sprayed on us, more so than on the Polaris. The Sportsman suspension is very soft, but yet still takes big hits well and doesn't have a whole lot of body roll. You feel small stuff a little bit more, but the big stuff just disappears. In the front, the Sportsman has a McPherson strut with 8.2 inches of travel. In the rear, it has a dual A-arm independent suspension with 9.5 inches of travel. So to kind of wrap up what I've said about these ATVs, we appreciate them most for their suspension and power. They are way more powerful than our old ATVs, and the suspension travel is way more plush. All in all, these are both great ATVs. I didn't do this comparison to pick a winner, just to show you the ATV's strong points and weak points, and I would recommend either of them to anybody.